Okay, and so today we're going to look at solving equations. Okay, so as I said, we're going to look at solving equations. Well, the first thing is, well, what's an equation? So an equation is when a term or an expression has an equal sign in it. So here, one of our key words for this topic is an equal sign, and we know that the two lines parallel to each other represent an equal sign. And so an equation is any expression where there's an equal sign between it. Okay, and so as I said, we are going to be solving these equations. So essentially, we are going to be trying to find out where X marks the spot. Okay, so we're going to be like detectives. Here you can see that there's an X mark in the spot, and it is generally, basically, it could be any variable, but always it's a variable of 1 degree. So it's x to the power of 1 or a or n to the power of 1, nothing more than that. So essentially, we are going to be just like Sherlock Holmes. So can you solve a crime like Sherlock? Can you find what x is, or a or b or any variable? Okay, so you remember from the last topic, a variable is something, it's an unknown and it's represented by a letter. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples. So always in these kind of questions, we're going to be asked to solve for x, or to find x, or find the value of x when, we might say, when 3x is equal to 27. Now, basically, our aim in all of these questions is to get x on its own. Okay, that's our one task, to get x on its own. So, if we look here at our 3x equal to 27, I want to get x on its own. So I look and I see, well, what's x multiplied by? Here, x is multiplied by 3. So what's the opposite of multiplication? Well, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by that 3. And the one important thing that we need to remember is, if I do something on one side of the equation, I have to do the same thing on the other side of the equation. And that's called balance. I'm balancing the scales. So here, well, I say, well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'm left with 1x, or x. And here 27 divided by 3 is 9. And that's my answer. It's as simple as that. And basically what it means is, if I have 3 and I put 9 in instead of x, what am I going to get? Well, I know that 3 9s are 27. Okay, so let's have a look at another couple of examples. Okay, so here in question 1, we're told that 2x is equal to 10, and again we've to solve for x. So the first thing that we begin by doing is, we note, well, it's 2 by x, so multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So here I'm going to divide x, or 2x, by the number beside the x. So here, dividing 2x by 2 will give me x. And again, the other important thing that I need to remember when I'm solving for x is about balance. So what I do to one side of the equal sign, I must do to the other. So here I have divided by 2. So over here I must also divide by 2. Okay, so that's the first step. So then very quickly, just to tidy that up, well, 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. So here I can see I'm just left with x. Okay, and here then 10 divided by 2, well, that gives me 5. And that is my answer. X is equal to 5. Okay, so this time I'm asked to solve 4x equal to minus 20. So here I can see that 4 is again multiplied by x. I know the opposite of multiplication is division, and so I'm going to divide 4x by 4 in order to get x on its own. And so my rule here is, if I do something on one side of the equals, I must do it on the other side. So here on this side I've divided by 4, so on the other side of the equals I must also divide by 4. Okay, and so when I do that, well, 4 divided by 4 is just going to leave me with x here. So I write down my x and I have my equal sign. And here I have, well, 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. And here it's a minus by a plus, so that's going to give me a minus from our rules for multiplication. Our rules are signs. That's me finished. X is equal to minus 5. And I can see if I was to replace this x with minus 5, well, I know that 4 by minus 5 would give me minus 20, which is what we started out with. Okay, so here in question 3, I'm given minus 2x is equal to minus 8. And again, I can see that here I have multiplication. So the opposite of multiplication is division. And so I'm going to divide this minus 2x by minus 2 in order to get x on its own. Similarly, if I have divided here on this side of the equals by minus 2, I must also divide on the other side of the equals by minus 2. And so, tidying that up, I can see, well, minus 2 divided by minus 2 is going to leave me with just x. And here, well, 8 divided by 2 is 4. And minus by a minus is a plus. So I'm finished. Okay, and in our last example here in number 4, we are asked to solve 16 equal to 8x. Now it's a little bit different in that always in each of these ones, our x has been on the left-hand side. Now it doesn't change anything here. In fact, I could simply rewrite that as 8x is equal to 16. And all I've done there is I've just flipped it around as if I've just transposed an image, or vertically or horizontally flicked an image, or just turned a mirror around. And so here I could say, well, I've 8x, so I'm going to divide by 8 on this side, and so I must do the opposite, or must do the same on the opposite side of the equals. Okay? And so, well, 8x divided by 8 leaves me with just x, and 16 divided by 8 leaves me with 2, and that is my answer. And again, if I was to go back and substitute these answers in for x anywhere, well, instead of 8x here, I'd be writing 8 by 2, and I know that 8 multiplied by 2 gives me 16, so I know I'm correct. Okay, so pause the video and make sure that you get each of these examples written down into your maths copy. Okay, and so in this question, we're asked to solve each of the following equations. And again, we know that an equation is anything that has an equal sign in it. Okay, so we're going to look at the first one. So it says 3x plus 12 is equal to 21. And so our big rules here again is always to get x on its own. And we do that through a thing called balancing. Okay, so balancing. And we remember that means basically that what we do on one side of the equals of the equal sign, we must do on the other side. So again, make sure that you write these notes into your maths copy. There are two big rules for solving equations. Okay, so let's give these ones a shot. Okay, so here in number 1 we have 3x plus 12 is equal to 21. So the first thing I want to do, well, is to get x on its own. And in order to get x on its own, I need to get rid of this plus 12. So what's the opposite of plus 12? Well, it would be to subtract 12. And again, if I do that on this side of the equal sign, I must also do it on this side. So here I'm going to have minus 12 as well. So here I know, well, plus 12 minus 12, they're going to cancel. So I'm going to be left here on the left-hand side with just 3x. which I'm going to write down. I have my equal sign here. And so here I just have to tidy up this. So 21 take away 12 is 9. And then I'm back exactly where I was before. So I have 3x. To get it on its own, I'm going to divide by 3. And here to get 9 on its own, I'm also going to divide by 3, because that's exactly what I've done on this side of the equation. So here they will cancel, and I'm left with x, and 9 divided by 3, well, that is 3. And that is my answer. And of course, I could go back and check, and I could have my original equation and say 3x plus 12 equals 21, which is the same as 3, bracket 3 plus, plus 12 is equal to 21. Well, I know that 3 by 3 is 9. 9 plus 12, is that equal to 21? Well, 9 plus 12 is in fact 21 if you check on your calculator. So 21 equals 21 is correct. I know I'm right. So that's my check to see have I balanced and solved my equation perfectly. Okay, but all it is, my two-step process always, get x on its own and then balancing. What we do on one side of the equal sign, we must do on the other side. Okay, so let's try number 2 together, and then you'll do I'll do number 3 next, and then you can do number 2 as your learning check. Okay, so here we're asked to get 4x equal to 3 plus 3x. So here on the left hand side I can see, well, I have 4x pretty much on its own, but here I have 3 plus 3x. So I want to get rid of this 3x from this side, okay, so that I can just have all the x's on one side. So here I'm going to take away 3x here. So in order to balance my equation, that means I must also take away 3x here. And so I know, well, 4x take away 3x, that leaves me with 1x, or x as I'm used to writing. I have my equal sign, I bring down my 3 because I've done nothing with that. But I know that 3x take away 3x is nothing, okay? So actually, I have no more solving to do. X is simply equal to 3, okay? And I can see if I was to do my check there, well, I'd have 4, and instead of x, I'm going to put in that 3 in brackets and see, is that equal to 3 plus 3x, and again, instead of x, I'm going to put in 3. Well, I know that 4 bracket 3, or 4 multiplied by 3, that's equal to 12. And let's just see, is that equal to 3 plus, well, 3 by 3 here is equal to 9, and 3 plus 9 is also equal to 12. So, yeah, 12 is equal to 12. I know I'm correct. Okay, so that's it for solving basic linear equations. So for your learning check, I want you to do this question here. 4a minus 4 is equal to 20. Okay, so let's see how you get on with that, and tomorrow we'll work on some activities in class.